I think for policymakers, the biggest part is understanding the complexity of the system and understanding whatever movement or indication we're going to do, it is about a long-term goal or a long-term vision.
Farmers are facing a number of challenges in New Zealand at the moment. We're facing new legislation around freshwater, Indigenous biodiversity, as well as carbon emissions. We've got to be really careful with bringing all those things onto people's livelihoods at once. For farmers like ourselves, these businesses are our livelihoods, and some of the legislation that's being pushed through could have huge impacts on those livelihoods. And we've got to be really careful about the negative impacts that could have on the rural communities.
One of the really important things for us going forward is that we do have fit-for-purpose policy that takes into account the geographic nature and the farming system. Why it's important to take a wider approach is that every single farm in New Zealand is different, and what's a good dairy farm today might not be a good dairy farm in 2050. A concern I have around blanket policy implementation across every single farm is that there'll be significant unintended consequences going forward.
The environmental pace of change has been very rapid, especially over the last few years. We've been fortunate that we've been able to keep up with it, but I think the regulatory authorities and government departments need to just bear in mind that there's only a certain speed that we can do this.
Quite often policymakers don't have a background in farming or understand it as well as they possibly could. We try and get policy people out onto the farmers whenever we can, because that gives them a good grounding, so when they are writing policy, they understand what may work and may not work in a farming practice sense.
We are all environmentalists at heart, but it's the detail within the policies and how we are expected to practically implement that when it hasn't been tested is very difficult to handle as a farmer. Let's make sure that we roll out these policies in a way that is going to enhance and enable our farmers to make those improvements and be better.
We'd love the science to be able to come on the farm with modern technology, to have it in your toolbox in your truck and say, wonder what nitrate levels in the water now. What's the energy value of this feed we're feeding the animals at the moment out in the paddock? Just to get a sample and just measure it. What brilliant technology that'd be to bring it onto the farm.
I'd like to see better tools or more research done around soil carbon sequestration in terms of measuring our net carbon footprint. Being able to take that into account is really important. Having the ability to better measure or better predict and monitor that would be really beneficial for us.
We need continuing support from our scientists and researchers to enable us to maintain levels of production whilst reducing stock numbers and meeting our climate change obligations.
Thinking about using some of that knowledge and data and then working with industries to say, okay, if farmers are challenged by climate, then perhaps they could think about changing to this particular enterprise so that they're more resilient over time and have a long time frame so they've got time to do that, not just overnight.
We really need to look at systems on a complex level now, not just as what direct link is this going to have on the specific area of the farm. What is it going to have on the whole system of our business?
To drive a successful global food security, obviously you need buy-in. You need to have people in all of the countries charged with that responsibility, and they need to be well connected, and there needs to be an overriding desire to make change and make positive change for better lives for people. So we're not just surviving, but we're actually thriving.